Okay, you're live. Good. Click the little buttons on it.
Well, I saw you talking.
All right, everybody, it looks like we are live and up. I am Claudia Bramer. I am a supervisor from Glens Falls, and I am the chair of our septic committee. It's a special committee that's been, can you guys hear me? It's a special committee that's been established by the Board of Supervisors this year, and it's only going until the end of the year, December 31st of this year. So we have worked very hard. I want to first thank Supervisor Dickinson. It's a little weird sitting in his seat, I will say, but I want to thank him for allowing us to host this meeting here. I also want to thank Dan Baruch for helping to pull together the technology, along with Mike Colvin, who's at the Warren County IT, our Information Technology Department, and Amanda Allen, who's the clerk of the Board of Supervisors. Thank you, everybody, for making this happen tonight. A special meeting. I also want to give a credit and thanks to the members of the committee who you see here tonight. Supervisor Craig Leggett from Chester, Supervisor Brad McGowan from Queensbury, Supervisor Sylvia Smith from Horicon, and we also have on the Zoom Supervisor Frank Thomas. We also have Supervisor Edna Frazier and Supervisor Dan Bruno, who are not able to make it tonight. But I do want to thank all of the members of the committee. I also want to thank we have a few supervisors who are not on the committee who are here tonight to hear from the public. I see Supervisor Hogan from Johnsburg in the back. I see Supervisor Mike Wild up here at the front. And I also see on the screen Supervisor Doug Beatty from Queensbury. So that's who you've got here tonight to listen to the public. Thank you to the public for coming here and being interested in this law and being willing to put your comments out here for us to hear. We're very interested to hear what you have to say, and we'll get to that in just a minute. We have already presented our proposed law to the full Board of Supervisors, and there will be a public hearing on Friday at our board meeting. So there will not be changes to the law between now and Friday. So what we are doing tonight is to hear your public comments, to get them onto the record, and to be able to absorb them and also consider them along with the public comments that we are receiving on Friday. So just as a brief overview, the proposed law is on the Warren County website. You're welcome to read it there. It's not super long, so it's there. There is also a survey, which I'll cover in just a second. But the proposal in a nutshell is that people with properties within 250 feet of specified water bodies would have to get their septic systems inspected by a third-party inspector prior to the conveyance of the property. And it does cover specified water bodies. Obviously, the people here are probably most interested in the fact that it does apply to Lake George. And before you sit down, Chairwoman, I just want to introduce you and thank you for coming here in person tonight. I know you have a lot of obligations. This is our Chairwoman of the Board, Rachel Sieber, up in the corner. And as I mentioned, on the website, we were able to put out for the public a survey to fill out. We have gotten some preliminary results back, and I'd like to go over those tonight. We have not talked about them as a committee, and I don't plan on presenting all of these on Friday during the board meetings because we will have so much to cover during Friday's meeting. But I did want to cover them tonight just so people can get an idea. We tried to put clear questions out for the public. The first one was, do you think, there's questions about what town or village or the city you live in, so what municipality. And then the first question is, do you think that outdated or failing septic systems along waterways can pose a threat to water quality? We have many answers, 11 no, 10 unsure, and 150 yes. The second question was, do you think that owners of waterfront properties have a responsibility to maintain their septic systems so that they do not harm the environment? On that one, there's 7 no's, 11 unsures, and 153 yes. The third one is, do you favor a septic inspection law that will require waterfront property owners to prove that their septic systems are performing to modern standards when they sell or transfer their properties? This one is no 34, unsure is 5, and yes is 132. The next one is, are you in favor of the proposed county septic inspection law as written? This one, I know the responses are a little bit different. No is 52, unsure is 27, and yes is 92. And then there was an area for people to put comments, and I haven't had time to analyze all of the comments to see if there's any main themes that come out, but I will make sure I get these out to the committee members so that we can all take a look at them. I know IT pulled them tonight just at 4 o'clock, so I think that between now and Friday, we'll probably have some more answers. So we'll make sure that we get the full answers to the committee before Friday. And any of the other supervisors who are interested, I'm sure you can see that as well. And again, that's on the Warren County website. There's a little button at the very top, and I thank IT again for helping us with that. And with that, on the public hearing, I would ask that members of the public keep your comments to about 3 minutes. I will try to keep count, and then I'm going to wave at you with 3 minutes. And if you could just wrap up at that time, I'm going to try not to cut you off. I'm not going to have a beep or anything like that, but I would like to make sure that we can get through the comments and get everyone heard in a relatively timely fashion. Any questions from the board? I mean, from the committee?
No.
Does that sound like good
No,
ground
yes.
rules? Okay.
Good round.
And I guess I should say one more as we,
Encourage everybody to speak if you can hear.
yeah, yep.
Yeah.
Please feel free to speak. We will not jump over the dais at you. So please come up. This isn't one of our workshop meetings, though. In the past, we've had a lot of back and forth dialogue. So we want to hear from you. So we will listen to your comments. We do not intend on having a dialogue back with you. All right. So if you're ready, step on up and just give us your name and your municipality would be great.
Sure.
Thank you.
First thing I'd ask is that if I could please do more than 3 minutes. I've got about 6 minutes worth of material. I wrote you a 3-page memo on this.
I think we can manage that. I am
Okay.
going to start my timer, but I'll be
Great,
kind,
great. Thank you.
generous,
That's great.
as I always am.
Okay. My name's, I'll take this off for the benefit of. My name's Ken Beiser. I own 1 1/9 properties up in Hague. My family's been coming up here since 1907 when we were escaping another pandemic, happened to be the cholera epidemic in New York City, which was caused by bad water because they discovered that fecal matter in the New York City water system made people sick. So we have a really deep interest in seeing the water quality remain high. Both of the houses, the one we have in Arcady and the house that we have in Bass Bay, both take water directly from the lake. There's a copper screen on the one at Bass Bay. That's the only filtration we have. In summary, I think the law that's as proposed makes a mistake in that it ties conveyancing to septic inspection, and this works to the detriment of both processes. Instead, I think the county, in coordination with other authorities, should require periodic inspection of all properties within 200 feet of a water body, within 100 feet of a stream, and that you should use a conventional enforcement mechanism such as penalizing offenders with cash fines, facilitating financing for those who are unable to comply. Okay, just going through those. The conveyancing is haphazard in its frequency. The property that my family owned was bought in 1907. It did not convey again until 1959. It then conveyed again and it was split in half. It did then conveyed again in the mid-70s. One parcel went into an LLC. It will never convey again. The other parcel has conveyed 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 through 3 generations, 9 times in about 22 years. So this haphazard nature means that you're using conveyancing that has nothing to do with septic systems as an enforcement mechanism. We should do this periodically on a periodic basis. Secondly, I believe that the law is going to be easy to elude. Number one, putting properties into an LLC completely eludes this law. And this is very, very typical for seasonal owners of properties. Generation passing, put it into an LLC. So there never will be a conveyance, therefore never an opportunity to inspect. Secondly, under 8.1.b, people can propose a new compliance system, but never, there's no actual enforcement mechanism. And third, the temporary deferral. I think that's a way, I think that's difficult to enforce other than by litigation. And I think litigation on these things is going to be expensive. So let's find a different way to enforce. Lots of conventional ways of enforcing. Next, I think you should include feeder streams and the 250-foot setback. So delete section 8.6. Next, this is a big thing. Title registries are a public service and they serve purposes other than septic enforcement. And by conflating the use, and I have a commercial property background as a trade, conflating the use of a property registry for enforcing septic creates problems for everyone. VA mortgages will be basically unobtainable in Warren County in a property that's done this way. Secondly, you wind up having problems where an heir needs to sell, doesn't have the money to fix their septic system. Have they got to go get a permission to get a waiver and make the buyer do it? Or do they have to come up with the money someplace before they have the cash in hand to sell? The process, the effect is going to be to drag out and delay and cause real frustration for the conveyancing of property and cause people a lot of distress. And finally, from my experience as a mortgage banker, I can tell you that people are just going to redline lending to properties that have this as a feature. It's going to make the enforcement of a mortgage difficult. And when somebody has to foreclose on a mortgage, they're going to say, hey, you know, if we actually foreclose and take title to this thing, it's going to start a 6-month clock. And on that 6-month clock, we're going to have to fix something. And then we'll only have 6 months to sell. I don't know if you know about distressed property sales, but if you can get them done in less than 2 years, it's a miracle. Okay. Normally they're a 3-year process or 2 to 3 year process. This is going to make this even longer. So you're going to have a stinky old septic system out there leaking for 4 years before a mortgage holder is able to sell that system to an effective buyer. So my recommendation is pick a traditional enforcement mechanism. What could those be? No dock permit, no fresh water access, no wells drilled. These are all effective means. I know crazy people out there are thinking about Fourth Amendment. Well, the Fourth Amendment has to do with unreasonable searches and seizures. This is not an unreasonable search and seizure. This is your opportunity as a homeowner to pollute your own water system. That's free riding on the commons. I hope you vote against this particular proposal, but I'm extremely excited that you're looking at this kind of a solution to this problem. Thanks so much. Thank you.
Great. What time are we done? 6:30. Who's next?
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Chairwoman Bramer, members of the Board of Supervisors. My name is Connor Billis. I'm Director of Government Affairs for the Southern Adirondack Realtors. Speaking tonight on behalf of the Southern Adirondack Realtors, an organization made up of close to 600 realtors and affiliate members across Warren County. I want to start out by commending the members of the Septic Transfer Committee for their hard work on this issue. Our association shares the goal of protecting this county's water bodies and ensuring that they remain safe from environmental hazards and available for residents to enjoy. While we believe that
Included in the file.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay.
we'll be back.
Oh, look, and now we can see the speaker on there. Was that there before?
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry.
My handy dandy remote.
All right. And is Frank back on?
Tammy's there, Doug's there, Don, Frank, there's Tammy.
Okay, all right,
Same people, yep.
good, great. All right, Connor, back up to whatever your last
Okay.
sentence was, and I'm gonna
Perfect.
restart your clock.
Okay, so I'll start here. Another concern that we have is not all of the water bodies are included in this law. If the goal of this law is to protect the environment, then all water bodies should be included. This could also put sellers of real property who live near one of the included water bodies in the law at a disadvantage to those who do not live near one. If a buyer is motivated to buy a home in Warren County, he or she may decide that a lengthy inspection process is not worth it, and they will eliminate homes from their search that have this requirement. We believe that the county might be better off promoting a public awareness campaign on the benefits of regular septic inspection. If we are waiting until the transfer of a property for an inspection, we are running the risk of not addressing problems until it is too late. Our association would be happy to partner with the county on any such PR campaign. Perhaps you could also come up with incentives like some sort of property tax relief or something along those lines for homeowners to have their systems inspected. In conclusion, we have shared goals in this area and hope we can find a solution that protects home buyers and property owners and preserves our environment. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Connor. Come on. Who's up?
Hi, my name is Jim Steen, Town of Horicon. I was a zoning administrator in Town of Horicon for 8 years. Just give you a little background. Just one quick thing. I'm just putting my timer on. This is a minor thing, but on section 4, fourth sentence in, it's speaking about applicability unless exempted by section H of this county law. The sections are numbered, so I believe that should
Yes,
be 8.
8, yes.
Okay. And when it comes to uncovering a septic tank, the distribution box, and any seepage pits to determine compliance with 75A, I don't see, if you do not dig up, if it has laterals or standard trenches and you don't dig them up, how are you going to know the length of them to see you are in conformity with the number of bedrooms required in a house? I know you can poke a stick in the ground. That's not very scientific. So I don't understand, if you have a newer system, roughly in the last 20 years, it does not have a seepage pit. It may not be functioning properly, but there's no way of knowing unless you actually dig up I don't see how an inspector is going to certify that it's functioning properly without actually digging up the laterals. As far as section 8, the exemptions and deferrals, qualifying exemption, property owner shall provide a signed notarized affidavit to code enforcement certifying that any existing structure on a real property will not be inhabited and each dwelling shall be demolished with no plans to rebuild. How is that going to be enforced? And we're not going to have the code enforcement guy driving around, once a week, seeing if the lights are on, at midnight, and somebody's in that house. I just don't see how that is ever going to be enforced. And, doing enforcement for 8 years, I kind of know what I'm talking about on that one. And the big thing to me is the leach field. You're not going to get a true sense of what's there unless you actually dig up the entire leach field to see what's going on. You're not gonna know the length of it. If you're required to have 200 feet of trenches, how do we know it is not 125 feet unless you dig it up? I do have a few other minor things, but the enforceability of it. Well, one of the big things I have is right from the get-go, when a property closes and the attorneys go to file the paperwork with the county, how is the county gonna know? Is it up to the county clerk to determine if that isn't within 200 feet of a body of water? Is it up to real property to determine that? Are they gonna go to the GIS system every time a thing is filed to see if it's compliant? Or are we gonna take the person's word for it who's selling the property? It just leaves it open. I mean, it's a great idea, this whole thing, to protect the water. I think it's being rushed. Has real property or the county clerk who does the actual filing of the deeds and all that, have they been consulted on what their role in this is gonna be? How are they going to determine? I guess you could create a list of every property in Warren County. I guess my time's up. And say, yeah, these are all subject to this thing, but that's going to take time, money, effort. I don't know if the county's prepared to actually spend that money up front to do that. We're going to leave on the good nature of the attorney to say, oh, this one's 300 feet, so we don't need that. Who's going to be the enforcer of that aspect of it, of who actually needs to submit the inspection report. So I think it's a great thing, and I applaud you guys for doing this, but I still think there's things that need to be addressed before it's put into effect. Thank you.
Thank you. John?
John Carr, Town of Lake George. Little background on myself, just so everybody here as I continue on doesn't think I'm somebody that wants to trash the environment. I drove an electric car here. I'm the only one that did that. I live in a house that's off grid, heated by solar, fully electric, no carbon. So just FYI, that's a pain in the neck to do that. So I'm all about it. I will also say this year I was involved with 4 residential real estate transactions, both as a buyer and a seller. All 4 of those transactions involved a septic system inspection. In other words, we're already doing it. So before we all get all complicated and slow it down, affect real estate. Secondly, those of you that are tracking real estate in Warren County, affordable housing is a major problem. Anything that's going to be harmful to affordable housing in this county needs to be seriously considered. Now, one might say the environment's more important than people's lives. I will tell you that there's a lot of municipalities, before you transfer a property, you're required to have the smoke detectors inspected because they worry about people's lives. 2 adults could have probably been saved if their smoke detectors worked this week alone in Warren County. Maybe we should do that every year too. Okay, at some point, the government intervention, it's too late and it's too much. The thing, and I've been driving this for years, is that education is more valuable than anything. You can force compliance, you can fine people, but the biggest problem, you know what the #1 problem with septic systems in this area are? People don't know where they are. That's the problem. How do you get people? Now, they may not sell their house for 10, 15, 20 years. Where's your septic system? We need to have a task force that can go out into people's houses, not an inspection, government heavy-handed policy, and find those septic systems. I was in Queensbury about a year ago in the winter. A woman was trying to sell her house, trying to figure out where her septic system was. The town had no record of it. They couldn't find it, and it was in the winter. Their answer was go dig it up. Well, you can't dig it up, which meant that she couldn't sell her house. That was a problem. And I watched this transaction. I was waiting to file some papers. I was there for 45 minutes while this went on. Wow, are we ready to actually do that for 100 transactions a month? I don't think so. I don't think we have the infrastructure to do that. Now, in the meantime, the state next to us passed some pretty straightforward regulations. The state of Vermont has a more serious problem with on-site septic than we do here in our area in Warren County. Their problem is groundwater and very high groundwater. You need 3 feet of soil between the septic system and groundwater to protect the groundwater. That's not achievable in most locations because Vermont's developed in valleys. We're fortunate enough to have sand and other things. My point here is what they did is something we should be doing right now, a simple law that's not going to be controversial. Require that all septic systems have inspection ports. Guess what I was doing this morning? I was pumping out a septic tank. It's pretty ironic knowing I was going to come to the meeting tonight, but it was an easy thing to do. Cost me $150 with Cook Septic. I undid the cover. The guy stuck the hose down in there. We were done. Took about 35, 40 minutes. But if I had to dig that up, I had to find it. I had to go through all this. It's a lot of work. Most homeowners don't do that. Have a program, where you could go and get that put in for $50, $100. It doesn't cost much. Every septic system that I currently own has an access port. It is so easy to inspect one, but people don't know where they are. And if the property doesn't transfer, you're really not going to help the environment for years. That's something that Vermont did, and it's made a major difference. And now, home inspectors show up, they inspect the house, they say, well, you should put this cover in. And it's really easy to do it. Nobody's offended. And to be honest with you, when you go through real estate transactions, and I know some of you have been involved with them, there's enough government, intervention. And what I would suggest that the county does instead, take some of that mortgage tax money, which is probably one of the most regressive taxes that we have, use some of that money to help make that transfer happen, where you guys will make more money in the future, and also protect the environment by using that money for that. I think is a great first step. Lakefront homeowners can afford it. Maybe there's more rigid standards for those guys.
But I think at this point, I think we should be starting with education and allow the system that's already working, which is home inspectors, to do it. I don't need the government telling me that I need a greenhouse or an electric car. Okay, people are moving in those directions and are doing it, quite quickly and actually quite fast. I'm impressed at how quickly everybody's wanting inspections of septics that weren't doing it 5 years ago. So let's let that go. Let's let that process keep continuing. Enough government intervention and, go green, guys. So come up to my house and drive your electric car. So thank you for taking the time and having a meeting at 7.
Thank you, John. For the record, mine is a hybrid, not fully EV. I know. Getting there. I'm trying.
Can I ask a quick point of clarification?
Sure.
So, John, Vermont has the inspection access reports? Is that, okay, thank you. Thanks. Thank you, Chairman.
Interesting. Yes, I was very interested in that too.
Christine Hayes. I live in Chester, but I work for Bolton and Horicon. Commend you guys for coming up with something like this, but this is not the way to do it. I agree with everyone that spoke here tonight. You're not including all of the lake bodies. We had a situation in Horicon where Clearwater Lake, the dam went out, all of that water went into Brant Lake. If you're not including Clearwater Lake, you're not including Valentine Pond. Horicon has a ton of water bodies that should be included in this if you were going to do this. It is putting a lot of strain on your county department to do something like this. You don't have the infrastructure, you don't have the staff, you don't have the knowledge for the building department to take this over. You're going to have to hire a lot of people. It's going to take a lot of money. And to mandate that the towns take this on or opt out and get their own septic plan, that doesn't seem fair either. The town should be taking care of their own lakes. There's a lot of towns that don't have lakes, but Horicon has a lot of lakes, a lot of water frontage. And we have enforcement, we have zoning administrators that can do something like this, but this is not the way to go. There has to be something different that you could come up with than mandating this. That you don't have the infrastructure at the county to do this. Okay.
Thank you.
We'll get Dan to do it.
No comment.
No comment.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Frank Gabriel. I live on Friends Lake and my property is lakefront property. First of all, I want to thank the committee for addressing this issue. I support the passage of a Warren County septic inspection law. And I won't go into the details, but your law is pretty, I don't want to say boilerplate, but very similar to other laws that I've seen across the state. But you're here to get, I think, more negative feedback in that, but I think it falls short of having any meaningful impact on the quality and protection of our lakes in the near future. I think it could take a 25-year cycle to go through only a portion of the septic systems on Friends Lake. And even with that, it's going to be maybe 25% of the properties. And I also think that in looking at things that are being done at the Lake George Park Commission and in the village of Lake George here ourselves, your 250 feet is well short of what they are referring to as the critical environmental area. I know that 250 feet seems to be a standard in a lot of other laws, but I think that should be expanded. Instead of the 250 feet, these other areas, the town of Lake George and the Lake George Park Commission, they are looking for septics in, again, that CEA, the critical environmental area, that is 500 feet within close to the lake. And they also, as mentioned earlier by someone else, they are including streams. And in a lake like Friends Lake, their streams are a certain designation of streams. We have a lot of smaller feeder streams that I think certain consideration should be given to them, okay? I also don't believe, like I said, we can wait 24, 25 years for this partial inspection program. Our lake needs to catch up with some of the other lakes across the state through a timely inspection program. You're probably aware of the Septic Initiative Program that was completed by the town of Lake George. If you're not familiar with it, you should look at it. It's a very comprehensive plan that looked at on-site wastewater treatment systems in that critical environmental area across the town of Lake George. And it took a long time for them to complete. I believe it was 3 years. They had a grant from DEC. And the report itself, it's pretty long, but it seems like a lot of good work to kind of bring them up to speed as to, you know, the data analysis. How many septics are there? What is the status of them? Where are they? They got a grant to do it. And I think that is what is needed across at least Friends Lake. And I can't speak for the other lake, but the law itself here is kind of nice on paper, but it's not going to have, I don't think, much of an impact, but it is a start. So I want to commend you on that. And especially in Friends Lake, where Craig is well familiar with, that the deepest part of our lake is 30 feet, and it has only an average water depth of 14 feet. And based on just common sense, I'm not a scientist or anything, I think our lake is much more at risk than large bodies of water with deep basins where septic failures can dissipate much more quickly and have less of an impact. If unhealthy phosphorus and nitrogen from septics are entering to our lake, our shallow warm water means less dissipation, and these items can be more harmful. So I'd like to say that I'd like to see if you could consider increasing the program to include streams, septics within 100 feet of streams, and increase all septics within 500 feet of the lake. The other thing that others have mentioned, and I'm just going to make a last comment on it, is that this document, the words on paper are nice, but without the proper administration and enforcement, you're wasting everybody's time and you're fooling the public. So I think that this committee, I don't know if you're disbanded after the law is passed, but you should stay together until a proper administration and enforcement program is structured. Otherwise, you're fooling the public, okay? And let's do this thing right. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Very good comments. I appreciate everyone being respectful and respecting the time. Anybody else? I see people with notes. Come on.
Good evening.
Hello.
I'm Jack Herring. I live in Lake Luzerne. I own waterfront property there. I'm here to speak against the policy and point out just a couple of reasons why. I think most of us would agree that to address a problem, there's two requirements. First is to identify the problem, and then the extent of the problem, and then formulate something to deal with it. I noticed in the draft document, with regards to finding the problem, all it says is something like Warren County finds that septics are a problem. Can anyone explain the extent of what has been done to determine there is this problem? Or is there any empirical evidence or data or anything that would substantiate that there is in fact a problem?
Mr. Herring, I don't want to get into answering questions and having a dialogue.
Okay. Another has to do with, in my opinion, a lot of ambiguous writing in the proposed law. I mean, I could go through them all, but I don't want to take up the time. But I'd be happy to either submit something in writing or, you know, at a later time or whatever. There's a couple of things, though, that are extremely troubling to me in the law, or the proposed law, I should say. One deals with section 10. And I'll read it verbatim. The code enforcement department, upon reasonable notice and during regular business hours, unless required by emergency circumstances, shall be presumed to be authorized by the real property owner to enter the premises to determine compliance. I have some major problems with that, and I think our Constitution would back it up. It doesn't even say with permission, okay? And there's one other that I believe is problematic. Perhaps one of you that were involved in authoring this could maybe clear it up, but that is in section 6, number 5, septic system. It starts out with it's a self-contained, and then it goes on to say what it is. The first thing that comes to mind is, what if it's outside of that definition? Supposing somebody just runs a sewer pipe out of their house into a hole. That's not self-contained, therefore it's not a septic system, and therefore it wouldn't come under the purview of the law. And there's several others, but like I said, I in the interest of time, I'll submit them in writing. And lastly, I think it's a bit, quite honestly, hypocritical to even propose something like this. It seems that there's a consensus that the only problem with our waters is from septic. I mean, that's the only thing that's been mentioned tonight. I know that is because it's hearing on proposed septic inspection. But as I have brought up before, and I'm not looking to point fingers or place blame, but merely present it factually, the county is probably one of the biggest polluters of our water system. We have no biofilters. We have no bioreactors that I'm aware of. In my town, the county roads, their storm grates, they dump right into the water. Everything goes in there. In your proposed law, it mentions the disposal of brine in a septic system. How many tons of brine are we using now on our roads, and where do they go? They don't run through a biofilter. They run right into the waterways. And I think this would unfairly impose a tremendous burden on homeowners, both financially. It would slow down the real estate process. And I would just throw out a few other things that are known problems. I know Lake George has dealt with it for years, and that's the problem of Canadian geese. Canadian geese are tremendous polluters of our waterway with the same thing that bad septic systems do in houses. There was a moratorium on hunting geese or shooting geese, whatever, for a while, and that has caused a number of them to increase tremendously. We have a huge problem with it where I live in Lake Luzerne. If they land on your lawn and are there for more than 10 minutes, you don't use that part of the lawn. I looked up a few statistics on the internet, so I'm sure they're 100% accurate. 50 geese in a year create 2.5 tons of that matter. And so it goes on. I do have some citations for that if anybody would be interested. But the storm drains that I'm referring to, recently we had an incident where there was a lot of discoloration in the water coming from the storm drain, and it appears upon inspection by the county that somebody poured paint in the storm drains, which drained directly into the water. How are you going to stop that? You're not going to stop people from doing that, but a biofilter or a bioreactor or something would have stopped it. Right. And lastly, I'm still on my bandwagon. We have a sunken boat in the water where I live. It's been in there for over a year. It's an inboard outboard boat. For those of you familiar with it, it's currently upside down in the water, and it has been there, as I said, for over a year. We can only assume that it's leaking gasoline, oil, battery acid, whatever else would come out of an upside down boat underwater. And there is no agency that has any interest in it whatsoever. Ms. Bramer has worked tirelessly on it, trying to get someone to be concerned about it, and nobody is. And yet we're here talking about putting constraints on homeowners to have their systems inspected, because that will be a cure-all. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Watch the time on that one. I don't see anyone else jumping up. Without objection, I would entertain a discussion from the board or from the committee. Keep calling us a board, we're a committee. I want to thank the public again. These were really great comments. I love the feedback. I think a lot of people make really good points about how the public should be already doing these inspections on their own. They really should be. It's there for their own public health, you know, especially if they have wells on their property or their neighbors' properties, to protect themselves and protect each other and protect our water quality and our environment. I think that the science is out there, Mr. Herring, to respond to your comment that there are issues with water quality directly related to the septic systems. It has taken a little bit of time for that to develop, the science there. The Lake George Park Commission just put out a study that they have done, a research paper, basically reviewing all of the other studies that were done related to water quality impacts from septic systems. And it's pretty clear that there are direct negative impacts. And one of the things that's really concerning, especially for our smaller lakes, is those harmful algal blooms, because I think it is easier for them to form in those lakes that are quicker to warm. And so when you've got the HABs there and it's harmful to, you know, drinking water and to our pets, we really don't want to allow this problem to get out of hand. But I hear there are serious concerns. You know, somebody said this is a start, and I'd like to think of this as a good start. There are definitely there's room for improvement. This was a compromise. There are people on this board who come from different backgrounds and different perspectives. And one of the things we tried to work on was a compromise about the distance, the 250 feet versus 500 feet. We talked about that. Or do we include streams? You know, to Supervisor Wild, he's been saying at board meetings, we should be including all water bodies. Then we also hear the concern about, well, you don't have enough staff. So how do we do this if we're going to include all water bodies right away? That means that a lot more properties will be included. And to get to the question about the recording of the deeds, you know, the county clerk has to, so I'm an attorney and I do real estate, and the county clerk cannot reject documents for recording. So it's not going to be at that phase. Whatever comes in for recording will be recorded by the county clerk as far as I'm concerned. But where it would be caught is in the real property department. That's where they check over the deeds and they look at them to make sure the descriptions are accurate, and they compare them with the maps. And we also already have, through the planning department, the GIS. We have a great GIS person in our staff. She's already pulled together the mapping that shows all of these properties within 250 feet of the water bodies. And we've given the town supervisors the list of the properties within each of the towns that are currently covered by the proposal. So we do recognize that there are going to be some difficulties, and I love the idea of having the committee stay on past December to help with administration and enforcement. So I think it will be difficult. And we also recognize that we need to do a better job of training people in the community to be the third-party inspectors. There's been some movement effort on that front, but we do need to do more. But I'll stop there. Do you want to say anything?
Well, I was glad to hear the comments tonight because many of those comments have been my concerns. And as she said, all of us have not been in agreement with this. And I'm like, Mike, gotta do all the waterways. We can't just do 2 lakes in Brant Lake when we have 3 other fairly good size, 4 fairly good size, and more waterways in the town of Horicon than any town in the county. And I think about our zoning office, what could happen in there. Let everything else go. I mean, I'm for protecting our lakes. And I know that our town board is for that. But can you imagine the administrative or the zoning office when somebody from Brant Lake comes in and they have to go through this whole permit system? And then you got somebody from Valentine Pond coming in, or Beaver Pond, or Crystal Lake, all nice size, deep bodies of water with lots of homes around them. They don't have to do it. Jim, how would you like to be in that office?
I would probably quit a lot sooner than I did.
I mean, it would be a nightmare in our small town. We are very conscientious of our lakes, and we have very clean lakes at this point. And I just think that we're rushing this. I think every comment that came out says we're rushing this. It's too fast. We're not ready. We need a lot more planning. I know Mike Wild has said it. We need to plan more in depth in order to pull this off correctly. I hate to see us do it in a half-a manner. I'd rather have it done correctly if we're going to do it. And I like the comment in the back, you know, maybe we start with everybody getting their, finding out where their septics are. It doesn't mean just the lake people. You know, you might be on top of somebody's well, for crying out loud. That could be more dangerous than the darn lake. We could kill a family. I mean, there's a lot to take into consideration, and we're jumping the gun. And I'm sorry not to be agreeable with everybody on here. I know Craig is saying to me, oh, well, those little ponds. And I'm like, wait a minute, no, Craig, those little ponds have lots of houses around them, you know? And we have that office that's gonna go crazy, and we have a darn good zoning administrator office. And Jim came back to train our new zoning administrator. He's got so much knowledge. And so that's about all I got to say. I guess I've gone long. I did over 3 minutes.
I should have timed you.
Yeah, you should have timed me.
Supervisor McGowan.
I
If you
do,
want to, yeah.
please, no, I too want to thank everyone. You know, it's been a long process getting here, and our chairperson, Claudia Bramer, has worked hard on this. And you know, it is a big thing. I personally like to see all bodies of water, but you know, imagine us coming out and saying that, and I don't really like even calling it a law. I more or less would like to call it, geez, I lost the word.
Guidance.
Guidance, no, not a guidance, but well, I'll come back to it. It'll hit me. But really, the main thing, you know, I've listened, the comments are great, and I understand them, and it makes me wonder too, when you go to sell your house, do you wake up one morning and say, I'm going to list my house tomorrow? I'm asking you all. Well, if somebody drops dead, yeah. Well, that's true. All right. Now, and that's why we have a committee, which I'm planning on staying together. And there are going to be circumstances that, well, I'm planning on staying on a committee if it's still around. All right. But you could come, you know, there's going to be circumstances. That's why we have a zoning board in our towns, you know, all over. I mean, there's going to be circumstances, but you know, I'm just saying is planning. I really have said from the beginning, education is really informing people. A lot of people don't even know the difference between a septic and a sewer. You know, and don't even throw in a cesspool because that is even totally different. And I was at the planning board last night and some gentleman was talking on the lake that they're upgrading a place and they're connecting onto a system, a community system, but that's still on a, believe it or not, a steel tank. And I kind of said, you sure you want to be saying this at the meeting, you know, but you know, it's really understanding it. I'm familiar with them because I've grown up this way and being in the construction end is something, but a lot of people don't understand that, especially a lot of people coming up from the cities and that are buying these properties. They're used to flushing everything right down the drain. And I'm gonna tell you, it won't be long before they're gonna be doing something because they're gonna learn they can't do that. So I just really, it's a start. It's a place to begin. It's not perfect. And this is why we've asked for your input. And
It's not perfect.
no, it's not. Well, no, everybody said this, there's a few flaws in there, but you know, what flaws that you brought up. I think it's a place to start, and that's where I would like to start it. So that's my opinion. Thank you.
Just a quick question. I was confused on your definition of conveyancing. If someone changes the title, okay, they hand the property to a nephew. They transfer the property to a grandchild. That's a conveyance under this definition. It's a change in the title ownership. If a divorce happens, that's a conveyance.
Correct. Yes,
And that means you're going from two people on the title
Yeah.
to one person.
Right.
So that's a conveyance.
the idea was to try to cover as many conveyances as possible so that we wouldn't have this, people trying to evade the law, someone said that. And also so that there wasn't, a lot of ambiguity about what is and isn't covered. If you're conveying the property any which way, that's covered.
Okay, so you have the 1,120 sales that took place last year.
Hold on, they can't hear you on the Zoom. You want to come to the mic?
Sure.
And while you're getting up, LLCs is not it's just,
No, when you put them into the LLC, it would be a conveyance. But my uncles put their property into an LLC in 1977. And there are now 38 beneficial owners of that. And
Right.
they're never going to sell because you couldn't get them to sell. Okay, to get 38 people to sign off. So it's in the LLC. Even if they were to sell to someone else, they could sell the LLC to someone else and it wouldn't go into the title book. It's not a property conveyance. Okay. A bankruptcy would be a conveyance. I mean, you're the lawyer.
Right, well, if you look
a
at the
divorce would be a
section, it's
conveyance.
supposed to be 8, not H. And then look at paragraph 3, it talks about exemptions from this for situations where we're talking about a trustee who really won't have any idea what the status of the property is. So if it's being conveyed from the county in a foreclosure, or if it's a bankruptcy trustee, a court-appointed receiver, a referee, or a sheriff's sale, that person, the seller, would not be subject to this law.
Okay. So if someone dies and it transfers to their estate, is that a conveyance?
Yes, and it is covered.
And if it then transfers from the estate to the heirs of the estate,
Yep,
that's a separate conveyance.
that's right. However, there is also an exemption if you've already had the inspection done within 3 years. You don't have to do it again. So in that situation where you're doing one back to back.
Okay. I think it just using the title registry as an enforcement mechanism, which is really the only reason you have it in there. You will wind up having active properties being inspected every 3 years,
Mhm.
which is super, and some properties not being inspected for 50 years. And
I hear you.
it's the wrong tool.
Supervisor Leggett, I'm gonna go to you and then do you need to leave Supervisor Wild? Or do you want?
No, I'm enjoying everybody.
Great. Then I'm gonna go to Supervisor Leggett and then I'll come over to you and I'll touch on the chairwoman
Looks
too.
like Supervisor Wild wants to take the podium here.
Go right ahead.
Supervisor Leggett, thank you. And I'm going to address the committee as well as the public. Friday, we're having another public hearing. And at the end of that public hearing, this will come to a vote. And it may very well pass because we never really know what's going to happen at the Board of Supervisors when all 20 of us get together. So this input from the public is great. I took a lot of notes, and if I need to, I'll speak about that Friday. But what's most effective, if you're not in favor of this, or if you are in favor of this, come Friday. Come Friday, because all the supervisors will be there, and they need to hear this input from the public. My guess is there is a better than 50% chance that this is going to pass, and it will become law. So I know it's not convenient. I asked for this meeting on the evening so the public could show up. But it's very important for all the supervisors to be able to hear this. And we need your input. Believe me, we listen when the public shows up. So, you know, I want to address the committee and also address the public about this. If you're strongly in favor, if you're strongly against it, please come. 10 o'clock on Friday. I know it's inconvenient for many people, but we need to hear more from the public because this is just a small group. And great comments. I'm not in favor of this. Most of the supervisors here know that. Right? I've spoken my mind about where we're going with this. I'm going to do my best to try to make sure it doesn't pass and we work on it with more input from the public, but I can't guarantee that Friday.
Why are you against it?
Why am I against it? I don't believe it's been well thought out and thoroughly vetted. One of the big problems I have is that certain towns have the ability to opt out of this. So that's a big problem of mine. You know, I
You know where that
understand.
came from. I'm gonna interrupt you. That was Supervisor Dickinson that said he wanted to opt out for the town so that the town of Lake George could
I
opt out.
understand. It's a county law.
I might have
And if it's a
recommended it.
county law, it should be applicable across the county. The septic systems, they don't live forever, right? They need to be inspected. They don't necessarily need to be inspected. They need to be maintained. And many people don't realize that, don't do that. So we've got a problem across the county. I don't think this goes far enough. Sometimes it goes too far. So I'm not on the committee. The committee's worked hard on that. It's been a compromise to try to figure out how to get it passed through the board, for sure. If you can tell me I should stop talking, I don't have my clock running. Right? But there's just, I don't think it's, I've used the word hollow before. It's a hollow law. It's not going to drive the results that we're looking for. And we need to think about what we do. Once we put it in a law, it's really not that easy to change. And it's going to take years for that to happen because of the fact that we're going to learn from experience about what was right with it, what was wrong with it. But through that experience, some people are going to get hurt, some people are going to win, and some lakes are going to get in trouble. So I think if we spent some more time and more public input about how to make this happen, I think everybody understands that the water bodies that we have here in the county are extremely important to us. Tourism is a big part of our whole economy. And people come here because of our water bodies and our lakes and our streams and our trees, and the whole 9 yards. So I don't think there's anyone that will be against finding some solution to deal with the impending, if not current, septic issues that we have. I just think it's not there yet. Thank you, Madam Chair and committee, for allowing me to blow a hole in your discussion today. But I think it's important that the public knows that this could very easily pass on Friday. Thank you again.
Thank you, Mike.
Sure.
I'm Mike Wild. I'm one of the supervisors representing police service.
Oh, okay.
I don't live on the water.
Now are you sorry you gave up your turn, Supervisor Leggett?
Not at all. As Supervisor Wild thinks he might have blown a hole in the discussion, but I think this was a very wide open discussion to begin with, so there was nothing to blow a hole in. So that's why we're here. What I pulled away from all of this is the systems thinking that people have at all the different levels there of how this works. And this fits into if the county does go forward with the authority to carry on this proposed local law, it becomes part of our local government system that interacts with all the people at various levels. We've had great input. We miss Colin gone, but everything from realtors, zoning enforcement agents, long-term property owners that have looked into even the math of 25% over 25 years. Will that achieve our goal? So this has all been great input and has got me thinking much deeper. And one thing I did hear about this, yell if I've got this wrong, it needs to be fair and just. So and Sylvia, I appreciate all your water bodies over there for sure. I'm not belittling them by any means, and it is good to include what we can. But as what Supervisor Bramer had said, this was a compromise to begin with. The opting out, I disagree with Supervisor Wild. I think it's very important that a town be able, at the resolution of the board, to be able to opt out of something. Now that is created at the county level. It's a relationship that we have between the two agencies there. And best at the local level. And sometimes you're the least able to carry it out. So you need the county level. And it's a whole relationship. And this is where coming from, and as Frank knows, the town of Chester has on the books and has had a septic pond transfer law for years. And it hasn't created a big hiccup, but it's been terribly hard to enforce. And that's where a small town would look to the county of being able to put resources out to check on these things and carry it out. So I love all these comments, and I can see incorporating more into how this is defined. Thank you.
Thank you. And one more.
Thank you very much. I'm Jim Niles from Lake Luzerne. I live on the Hudson River. And my college background is environmental science. I haven't used that since I graduated 100 years ago, but I have a basis for being able to discuss some of this stuff. All of us would agree we've got to take care of our water bodies. It's been said over and over that they're very important to our communities and so on and so forth. I've heard the comments tonight, but I don't see the harm in putting this in place now and tweaking it as we need. A lot of the suggestions and comments I've heard tonight could be dealt with. I don't know why it would take a long time to tweak the legislation if we need to a year from now. I don't understand that process. But I really think there's a much potential greater harm if we don't get moving on something like this. When I was a kid in college, I remember thinking Al Gore was a nut. Do we still think that about global warming? It's kind of proven now. I'm not saying our water bodies are in terrible shape, because they're not, but it only takes a couple of years for a lake to be severely overtaken by Eurasian milfoil. The shallow bodies of water like Friends Lake and so on, when they're shallow, the sun hits them harder, the growth from the bottom up is much faster because of two reasons: water temperature, okay, and sunlight. I agree we should do every body of water, but I think it's unrealistic to dive into every body of water right now and expect to solve all the identification problems, all the enforcement problems if we take the whole county now. But what's wrong with starting out with some of the major bodies of water? I think there's a big cost if we don't. That's my opinion. Thank you. I know you guys have worked a lot on this. I've been watching you on Zoom, and I know the compromises. I've seen that transpire as you got as far as you have.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I think the committee has worked hard on that and we've come to compromises. And I do think that changes could be made. They don't, after, if something were adopted, let's say Friday, I don't know that that's necessarily going to happen, but there's no reason that we couldn't continue the septic committee and make changes as needed. And it doesn't have to take years and years and years. We've done a lot of the groundwork already. Supervisor Thomas, do you want to say anything before I extend the floor to our chairwoman?
Just briefly, thank you Supervisor Bramer for heading this committee up. And I know you've been at this for several years now. And I do appreciate all the comments from everyone. And I do kind of think that there might be a simpler way of doing this. I'm not sure exactly what that is, but I think we're going to cause as many problems as we're going to solve. So I too would like to see the committee continue, and I think we still have more work to do.
Fair, good point to be had. Thank you, Frank.
Yep.
Doug, Supervisor Beatty.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I took a lot of notes. I think the public spoke loud and clear on a number of different issues and concerns they have. Some want to go forward with getting started with this and amending if need be, and that makes sense. Regular inspections, using mortgage tax money to educate and so forth, using the Vermont template makes some sense to me anyway, having septic access portals. Wanting all bodies of lakes to be included. I think that's a consensus probably of everyone, but I've gone to a lot of these meetings and compromise is a word that was used often, and it has to be. Government is compromise. There's 20 different supervisors in there representing a number of different people and a number of different issues. And I believe this committee did a great job in compromising where they had to. Otherwise, we'd be in my opinion, we'd be nowhere. You guys would have nothing. So is it perfect? No, I don't think it is. Is it a great start? I don't know if the word great should be used, but it's a good start, solid start. You guys have done a lot of work to it, but I definitely agree with a lot of the speakers today that it needs some tweaking and / amending as we go forward. So I'm not sure how the vote's going to go Friday, but I appreciate the time and effort everybody put in here tonight, and thank the public for coming out. And hopefully they will come out Friday morning also and express their opinions and views to all 20. So thank you, Madam Chairwoman, and the committee. You guys worked hard on this, and I appreciate the effort.
Thanks for tuning in tonight. Hey,
No.
Amanda, can I ask you a question? Sure. How long do you think it will take to get minutes from tonight?
Well, the minutes won't say very much because it's abbreviated, but the
Okay.
YouTube live will be
That'll
as
go
soon as
up
it's over.
tomorrow, right?
It'll be up
Tonight, okay. So other supervisors could theoretically watch this between now and Friday if people can't make it. I just don't want, I mean, I understand come Friday, I get that point. But not everyone's gonna be able to come again on Friday morning, so. There has been a video recording, so it'll be available to everyone on the YouTube tomorrow or tonight. And I know that there were some comments on YouTube. Do you want me to take those before you want to say anything closing? I'll take these comments first. Okay. Don, please.
Hi, Chairwoman Raymer. We do have a handful, they're mostly questions, which I know not into answering questions right now, but they'll be added to the record. A few from a Michael C. Chaffee. How is the 250-foot setback measured on the horizontal plane or along the surface of the property? When would the law be enacted? What happens if you do not meet the requirements? If the septic system is not up to current code but is working properly, does the septic system need to be upgraded? What would a septic tank inspection and dye test be adequate to demonstrate the functionality of the septic system? And then we have one question, questions from user going by the name of Hague Viewpoint. Why would inspections be only at the time of transfer? Have you been following the actions of the Lake George Park Commission, which appears to be favoring a time-based septic inspection law? And that's all we have on YouTube.
Okay, thank you. I think some of the questions from Michael, I think Chaffee, are answered right in the law, so that should be okay. And then the only at transfer, yes, I've been following the Park Commission closely to see that they are going to this idea of a periodic inspection, which I think is great, because as has been mentioned a bunch of times, people need to actually maintain their systems, not just check them once every 50 years. But I don't know. I hate to repeat it again, but I feel like that was a compromise too, the at transfer inspections versus a periodic regular inspection. Yeah. So, okay, good. Thank you, Don. Thank you, Mr. Lehman. Chairwoman, you want to help us wrap up?
I just wanted to take the opportunity, one, to say thank you, not just to the committee and the board members, but really specifically to the public. This has been several years of discussions as it relates to how we can better respond to the problems that are surrounding our community. And what's wonderful about an evening like this is we really show who we are. We come together. It's not just when you're here that we should listen. We should listen all the time. We should hear you all the time. And I think what's been great about this process, particularly this last year, with all the emphasis we've been able to put on establishing a committee, is precisely that. We're listening through email, we're listening through phone calls, we're listening through knocking on the door. We're continuing to respect each other's opinions and try to come together somewhere on a compromise. And if we don't start now, I wonder, when do we start? No one wants to be wrong. No one wants to be imperfect, but we do have to find a way to come together and say, we've got to find a starting spot, because this isn't about just Chestertown. It's not just about Horicon. It's not just about Lake George. It's about Warren County. And sometimes our communities need the help of the county. So how do we work together? John Carr spoke yesterday, I think it was yesterday, John, at our American Rescue Plan Act meeting. And it dawned on me that as you were talking about the need for emergency services and a response in some particular areas in the county that may need it where others don't, we're very similar in that with septic. Some communities are well built and have the infrastructure to respond to the needs of their community, but some need help. And we need to be a good team. We need to worry at a county level about how we're going to help our municipalities. And I think what you're seeing here over this last year was a dedication to saying, let's come together, let's have this talk, and let's respect each other's opinions on it. We've had meetings before at night. We continue to reach out and ask you to email and call and text and knock on doors. And we don't want you to duplicate your efforts, because we want to be able to record them and share them and reflect on them and go back to them and say, you know what? Is it Frank? Is that your first name? Frank, what a great idea to say, hey, let's make this committee last longer. Why does it need to end at the end of this year? It doesn't. It should have started years ago. So, my commitment to you as chairwoman is to continue to talk about that collaboration. Let's keep that committee going. And maybe it's not perfect for Friday. Maybe what we say is pause. Stop, keep working on this. Let's make it better. That idea from Vermont, that's great. I think I heard you say, and well, John, I wrote it down on my other piece of paper about, when does government go too far? But at the same point in time, when do you need government to step up? So are there financial ways we can help? Or could we use some of those ARPA dollars to assist? That program that came out in Lake George, I mean, within minutes, I feel like we expended all the dollars. And Dan, I know you and I talked about this before. There's got to be a way that we can help, particularly families and individuals that do not have those resources. So we do need to step up. There's no question about it. The question just becomes, how far do we step? And I don't know about you, but I'm not big on the government stepping too far into my life, but I definitely want to have some collaboration. And I think that's what this committee represents to you, is a start. And, I'm not delusional about our board meetings. I know that sometimes things get passed too quickly. I know other times we talk things out for years and we miss the whole point. So here tonight, I think moving forward, We want to make that commitment to continuing our committee. We want to make the commitment to helping each other because that's what we were elected to do. And we were elected to listen to you and then take action. And it's not going to be perfect. But we shouldn't be ever in a situation where we're making things worse. To Frank Thomas's point as our budget officer, there comes a point in time where we overthink things and maybe drilling it back down to the basics of how we can be really good partners, but still have that expectation of each other. So tonight, your comments were all excellent. I hope that I have the opportunity, Frank, to immediately say, great, let's keep this going. And years from now, I hope we keep it going because there's a need. So I appreciate all of your perspectives and input. I think it's been a really critical year to get this off the ground. And I hope we keep doing great things with it. And it may not come in a vote on Friday, and that's okay, because we'll keep working at it. And it's more important that we respond to the needs and not let imperfection scare us, because we can do this. And thank you for taking your time on a Thursday night to talk all things septic. I know it's a very exciting, or is tonight Thursday or Wednesday? Wednesday night.
All things.
But really, thank you. And the great thing too about the county, and you're incredible with this Zoom, by the way. No offense, Amanda. I know we work really hard at the county, but this is pretty, we've got a remote going, which is pretty enticing to us. But it is live on YouTube. We do keep all of this recorded, unedited, and with public hearings. That's the point of having them, is we can continue to take this information and then retain them. So I just wanted to say thanks, and especially the committee. You're going above and beyond, and I'm going to continue to ask for more. And I know your public's going to ask for more, and I appreciate all of you stepping up. So thank you.
Thank you. All right. All right, for tonight, I'll take a motion to adjourn. Thank you. Second. Thank you. All those in favor? Thank you, everyone, for being here.